There are 15 rules of making money with SAM.gov and government contracts that wealthy business owners understand and everybody else does not. Despite the fact that the US government is the single biggest purchaser of goods and services in the world, it's not even just the top 1% of small businesses, it's actually a quarter of 1% of small businesses in this country, in the United States, as of 2025, actually sell to the US federal government. In this video, I'm going to walk through the 15 laws or 15 rules that you are going to need to know if you want to be successful in this area. Why listen to me? My name is Rick Howard. I'm a former government acquisitions officer. I put companies on contract for the government. I managed those contracts, over $82 billion with tech companies, foreign military sales, a variety of other things. Then when I retired, I did two things. I started a training and advisory business where I helped small businesses specifically. I trained their sales teams. I put their roadmaps together so they could be successful selling to the government, and they've made hundreds of millions of dollars. And I have trained over 247 individuals in the GovClose training program. We're the #1 training program for sales executives that are selling to the government. And now I'm going to teach you 15 rules that they learn in our program. And number one, selling to the government is hard. Anything worth doing in life is difficult. You have B2C sales, B2B sales, B2G sales. Business to government sales is hard. This is not an easy thing for you to do. And if it was, it probably wouldn't be as profitable as it is or worth doing. And this leads to rule number two. Rule number two is selling to the government takes a long time. It takes longer to sell to the government than it does to the consumer. It takes longer than it does to sell to other businesses. It is the longest of the three, 12 to 18 months. Typically, and by the way, there's a lot of variation there, right? The government buys a lot of different things and they buy in different ways. This just adds to the complexity. But in general, if you want to make money selling to the government in one of the industries, we have to plan on a 12 to 18 month cycle to actually win your first contract. After that, it can become easier. There are different things that you can do to streamline the process and make it faster. That first contract, though, you can bet 12 to 18 months. So, Rick, if it's hard and if it takes a long time, why are companies selling to the government? Why do I always hear about government contracting? Well, it's because if you do it right, selling to the government can be enormously profitable. Despite everything that we hear today about government shutdowns and everything else, if you have a contract with the US government, let's say you have a 3 to 5 year contract and they're paying year over year, the odds are that they are going to pay year over year. The government almost always pays. And even if they cancel a contract, you can actually go back to them and have them pay for all of the work that you put into getting ready to prepare for the next year. So they pay even when they cancel a contract. And then, of course, if you were going to sell a business, having government contracts that are paying year over year is one of the strongest signs that you have strong revenue and that it's predictable and that you can count on it. Now, the first three rules are designed to set legitimate expectations as to what you should expect. It is hard, it takes a long time, but the reason you do it, it can be enormously profitable. It reminds me of a quote by US President Calvin Coolidge that said persistence and determination alone is omnipotent. What he's really talking about is he's saying, hey, it doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter what degree you have. The only thing that matters is that you are persistent and you are determined, meaning I am not going to stop and I am focused and I'm going to keep going no matter what. He's basically saying work hard and be focused. And that's what it takes to win government contracts. Rule number 4 is what I call the law of profitability. There's a lot of data on federal contracting. So we want to understand what that data says before we attempt to sell to the government. The way this plays into profitability is there are certain things that we can sell to the government that will make you very profitable. If you understand the process, if you sell a product or service that has high margins, if you understand how to work those into your proposals, then this can be very profitable for you. But if you are selling something that, for instance, comes down to what the government calls lowest price technically acceptable, or you are trying to middleman something, then this can be either not profitable for you or it could actually cost you money. Okay, so we want to understand what can make us money selling to the government. A good example would be if you're selling commodities, toilet paper, products like low dollar office supplies, things that you're going to find on a shelf in a supermarket or in a office supply store. These are things that almost always come down to the lowest price technically acceptable. The profit margins are always going to be super low. Going into middleman, this is a popular strategy that's around the internet. It just doesn't work. It is basically you trying to find a solicitation on SAM.gov and match it with a small business. Now, first of all, there are laws that could prevent you from doing this, especially where you think another business is going to do all of the work. Middleman is not in the federal acquisitions regulations. If you win a government contract, you are a prime contractor, you're responsible. There's no easy button, okay? And I have had plenty of people that have tried this middleman strategy, almost all of them unsuccessful. And the ones that were successful were making little to no profit and found it was just a huge pain in the butt. Go see my other videos on middleman if this is what you've been thinking. And this goes into rule number 6. Rule number 6 is don't start a government contracting business, start a business. If your goal is to sell to the government, you have to have a business. Not only do you have to have a business because of the incredible complexity and the long timelines, and we talked about how hard this is, you need a product or service that you have sold before. There are some exceptions to this, but you want to be able to show the government, hey, I've been in business for 3 to 5 years or longer. I've been selling accounting services. I've been selling landscape or construction services. I've been selling X, Y, or Z. Whatever it is that you are trying to sell to the government, you want to have a track record of being amazing at providing that product or service. And the government's going to check to make sure that you do. The more of that past performance, even commercial, that you have, the easier it's going to be, but the more likely you will be to succeed in the government contracting space. We're trying to provide value. This is not a get rich quick. There's nothing easy about it. It is, and I can tell you from experience, it's much easier to sell commercially, selling to the consumer, than it is to sell to the US government. One thing I will say, if you're just interested in government contracting, maybe you have government or military or federal experience, maybe you are just interested in it, there are other avenues for you working, for instance, as a consultant or an account executive. I'll get into those at the end. So if that is intriguing to you, stick around and we'll cover those in this video. Now, rule number 7, this goes into what is your business selling? And I call this the rule of specificity. You do not want to approach the government saying, I sell everything, I handle everything. I'm going to give you a real example here. So as an acquisitions officer, I would get approached by companies that actually understood the process of selling to the government, and they'd be in my office. And for instance, my office specialized at the time on technology that was developed to handle very, very difficult problem sets for the government. Things involving flying operations, things involving defense systems. And so I'd have a company that would come in and maybe start talking about something related. And then all of a sudden, they're telling me that they provide janitorial services. And they're telling me they provide, hey, we do accounting and janitorial and HVAC and landscape. I'm like, did you do your research? Like when you approach the government saying you could do everything immediately, what you're thinking, what I'm thinking on the other side of that table is this company doesn't specialize in anything. Why would I hire them? I'm not hiring them to do cybersecurity if they're also a landscaping company. They just want a government contract. Maybe they don't specialize in anything. You want to be super specific. And the other reason for this is the government buys all of these things in different ways. The government buys software in different ways than it buys landscaping. It buys accounting services and staffing services in a much different way than it, say, buys airplane parts. You are going to have to spend a lot of time understanding how the government buys a specific product or service that you're selling. And we're going to get into this, we can see which one to focus on, which one has more profitability, which one has less competition, more spending, etc. But if you're trying to focus on everything, you're really focused on nothing. So if you want to sell to the government, be specific. Learn how they buy one thing. You're going to learn the offices that buy it, how they're buying it, and then you're going to go after it. You're going to be successful. So the law of specificity, probably one of the most important rules on this list, and that's law number 7. Okay, so now we're at rule number 8. I have a business. It's very specific. We do X. Well, the next thing you have to do is, this is where we have to be smart. Because it's hard, because it takes a long time, we need to take advantage of the advantages that we have. And if anyone that has watched this channel understands how much I spend on federal spending analytics, let's verify the government buys what you sell before you try and sell it. I'm going to show you how to do that right now, really quick. Okay, this is SAM.gov. We go here to search awards. I'm going to look back past couple of years. FY stands for fiscal year. The fiscal year starts October 1st and ends at the end of September. We're going to go back just a couple of years here. And now the way we can actually see what it is that you sell are couple ways. We can either type in a keyword, or we can use a product service code or North American Industry Classification Code. Okay. Now, the way we would do this, if you're not familiar, these are categories of spending. Now, the more specific the thing is that you sell, the harder it might be to actually find a code that matches. It just depends. We may have to use a keyword, for instance, for something like augmented reality, versus if I sell something, and these are product service codes. first thing I would recommend is that you go in here and you see either in the NAICS code or product service code, if there's something that matches what it is that you're selling. I'm going to go in here under services. You can see there are a lot of things that are listed in here. All right, I'm going to just go in here under product service code. I'm just going to show you here. Let's say that we come down, I see support services, which is pretty common. We want to expand that list. Here's administrative support services, and then you can further break that down. All right, I'm going to open up the product service code. Product service codes tend to be a little bit more specific than NAICS codes. And then when I scroll down, I can see here support services. Let's say I'm looking if you have your PMP, maybe you provide program management support, or you have a company that's working in that area. We can scroll down here, open up our 4 professional services. Again, you're just scrolling through here looking for kind of what matches what it is that you're selling. And if you don't find it, you may have to resort to keywords. Now here I can see support professional, program management, and support services, right? All right, so I'm going to submit that. And what this is going to do is it's going to show me the contracts that have been awarded here. But if I scroll down, it'll tell me not only, so USA Spending, this is a free resource, usaspending.gov. It's breaking it down by agency, so Department of Defense, Department of State. So we can already see that the government spends a lot of money here, right? Then I can see another breakdown over time. I just want to look at it over year just so I can get a sense, right? So if I see year over year, 12.6 billion in 2023, 14 billion. So there's a ton of money's being spent here. 8 billion in 2025, 2026. This is, as I'm recording this, it's November, the beginning of November of fiscal year 2026. There's about a 3 to 6 month lag in reported spending, especially from the DoD, and we have a government shutdown. So that's the only reason this is so low, right? This is going to go up. By the way, 2025, if we look at this in 2 months, this is going to be up. It's probably going to be higher than that, I would imagine. But we could do something else here. We want to check and see, what about small businesses? Maybe you're a small business, because I can guarantee you it's going to be less. All right, we verified that the government actually spends money on these type of services, but I'm going to give you a sub rule to 8. Let's call this rule 8A. That's no pun intended and not related to the certification at all. I'm going to go back to USA Spending because I want to see how much is being spent each year on small business for this program management area. As we saw, $14 billion, for instance, in 2024, $8 billion in 2025, which will probably go up. I would imagine it'll end up around close to what 2024's numbers were. I'm going to go back in here. Okay, now you're looking at this screen again. This is the exact same screen we were in, but now what I'm going to do is I am going to go to recipient type. And you can do this, by the way, if you happen to have a certification or set aside. We'll talk about that later. If you're a woman-owned small business, 8A, you can go in here and you can put exactly what your business is to see if and how much the government is spending on that. I'm just going to look at small business for now. By the way, the law of small business, which is Rule 9, is that the U.S. government is required to buy from small businesses. Roughly 23% of their spending is required to go to small businesses. All right, so law number 8 was just verify, right? The law of verification. Verify that the government buys what you sell. But this brings us to law number 9, and this will work out for you if you're a small business. Most of you would be, and that is the law of small business spending. The U.S. government's required to spend a certain percentage of their funding on small business contracts. The SBA sets goals for U.S. federal agencies. It's roughly 23% across the agencies. Some of them exceed that, some of them don't. But now we're going to go back in and we're going to check out small business spending. All right, so you may remember this chart. This is showing us a breakdown by agency for the program management code that we put in there. Now I'm going to go in here under general business and I click small business. Now, depending on what kind of company you are, you can go really deep on this. You can, if you are a minority owned business, if you are service disabled, veteran owned small business, we can go as deep as we want. But today we're just going to click on small business. I'm going to hit submit. All right, so we can see, like for instance here, the DoD dropped down to $6 billion. Actually, this is a really good sign. What about year over year, right? Remember FY24, we saw how much was being spent. Now that's about $6 billion. So it's about half of that, which is actually pretty good. So that's even better than 23%. Hey, so that's your free lesson on verification and small business spending. Let's recap so far what we know, right? We know the government, selling to the government's hard. It takes a long time. It can be profitable. If we go to 5, one of those things that does waste a lot of people's time and money is trying to do anything involved with middlemen. So we're going to forget that. We are going to have a business that actually has past performance. Law of specificity, we want to sell something really specific. Then we want to verify that the government actually buys it, which we did here. We saw that the government was spending, roughly $14 billion a year, at least for 2024, in program management service. And then we went to this law of small business spending. The government has to buy from small businesses, or is required to, and they have goals set by the SBA. And we saw that roughly year by year, and I'm looking at it right here, 2023, they spent $5.9 billion on small business contracts, $6 billion in 2024, and $4.5 billion in 2025, which will probably go up because there's a lag in spending. And right now it's November of 2025. So in a few months, we'll have a much better idea of how much was actually spent in 2025. All right, now rule number 10 is SAM.gov. You have to be registered. So if we've done all of this and we understand all of this up to now, and we know that there is spending and there's a lot of it, and there's more that goes into that, certainly, we have to be registered to SAM.gov if we're going to sell to the government. And my advice to you, even if you're going to approach as a subcontractor, and we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later, SAM.gov, you have to be registered. I'm going to show you right now exactly where you're going to do that. All right, guys, this is SAM.gov. And what you're going to do after you've verified everything, you have a business, meaning you're going to have your business officially registered with the government. You're going to have all of that information, and it'll give you a checklist here. But when you go to SAM.gov, there's a lot of things. You can search for contracts here, but before you can bid on anything in SAM.gov, even taking this to another company as a subcontractor, you want to have your business registered. Now, right here, it says register your entity or get a unique entity ID. You just click Get Started. Now, when you come in to Get Started, you can see here under About Registration, right here, Entity Registration Checklist. I want you to click on that. And if you want me to provide this to you, just say checklist in the comments. If not, you can go to SAM.gov and get this yourself. And it's going to tell you everything you need to register in SAM.gov. I have other videos that are completely dedicated to how to register in SAM.gov. My advice to you is don't pay anybody to register you. You can register yourself. It's going to require a lot of documents that you have that you're probably not going to want to share with anyone else. Look, guys, honestly, if you can't figure out how to register in SAM.gov with this checklist and through the website, then government contracting is not for you, because it's about to get a lot more complicated, right? So just know this. If you can't figure out how to register your business in SAM.gov, don't waste your time with government contracting. Rules number 11 and 12 are closely tied together. You've probably heard of small business certifications. I've already mentioned some of them in this video. There's 8A, and a lot of controversy about 8A right now. There is SDVOSB, which is Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business. There's Woman-Owned Small Business, and there's HubZone. Now, the reason I bring up those four, if you go to register your business, you're going to see all these different things you can self-certify for. But these certifications, you can't self-certify when the government is actually looking for a business with one of these certifications. You have to go through the official certification process. Now, I'm going to show you where to do that right now. Okay, so what I want you to do here, this is SBA.gov. You're going to go down here where it says federal contracting, where it says contracting assistance programs. Okay, now this is going to walk you through some of the different programs you have. Small disadvantaged business, woman-owned small business. This one of these, we've talked about a couple of these. We talked about this one, woman-owned small business. We talked about 8A, business development program. We talked about HubZone, and we talked about service disabled veteran-owned small business, not veteran-owned small business. Here's the thing, guys. Service disabled veteran-owned small business is what's going to move the needle here. And as far as the other, if you think that you meet 8A, veteran-owned, woman-owned small business, or HubZone, then go to the SBA.gov and click on the appropriate link to see what is involved with gaining that certification. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple things. One is these certifications are nice to haves, but this is not what is really going to move the needle for your business. The government just doesn't fling contracts at companies that have these set-asides. In fact, a lot of small businesses get into selling to the government because they know, hey, I might qualify for 8A, SDVOSB. No one just gives you a contract because you have one of these certifications. It requires a lot of work. Now, for the ones that I mentioned, there is a goal that the SBA sets, usually between 3 and 5% for each of those categories, where they say, hey, federal government, we expect you to award, say, 5% of contracts to service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Now, knowing, here's just a tip, we'll call this 11A, that if you are a service disabled veteran-owned small business, which is, I wouldn't have said this a year ago, but with some of the things happening with 8A, service disabled veteran-owned small business is starting to look like the most powerful of the certifications, especially if you're selling to the VA, because they have special policies that make them look at service disabled veteran-owned small businesses and veteran-owned businesses first. So rule number 11, there are small business certifications. They can help a little bit but it is not the thing to focus on. There are two things to focus on if you want to be successful selling to the federal government. Rule number 12, value. Your company should provide value. And this is almost a rehashing of have a business, rule number 6, but you have got to provide value. Your business has got to do something great. It can be something mundane. It can be something that no one's ever heard of before, but you have got to provide value, your business. And your value isn't finding a solicitation on SAM.gov and matching it with someone. Your value as a business is you do something. You're the best landscaper. You are an amazing accountant. You have a company that is great at social media advertising. Whatever it is, and you've followed all the rules up to this point, that's what you really have got to provide if you want to be successful here. Because look, you could win a contract, but if you're not providing value and doing things the right way, you're not going to win another one. The government has a way of making sure everybody else knows if your business didn't perform. This is not something to try out because it's easy or fun. This is, I have verified that I provide value, and now I'm going to provide value to the government. And by the way, look at who we're providing value to. If you're selling to the government, you're selling something that is going to potentially end up in the hands of our military, of the warfighter. It's got to work. You've got to provide an amazing service. Even if you're providing janitorial services, right? We got to make sure that you've got a team that they can show up. They do an awesome job. Everyone that shows up for work shows up to a clean building. The HVAC system's going to work. Whatever it is that you do has got to be great. Now, provide value, but if providing value was enough, then every business that had a great service, tech, whatever, would be successful, and they're not, right? So we have to provide value and understand the government contracting process. So number 13 is understanding. And you know what? In this particular space, it's easier than anywhere else because all of the data is available. Let's go back to usaspending.gov. All right, so if you remember, we took a look at program management services, right? We're going to go back down there. We're going to look at program management. Here's product service codes, services. All right, and you may remember we went through here, we looked at how much spending there was, and then we even went further and we looked at recipient type and we looked at small business. Click submit again. Now, one of the things that we can do here is we can understand who are we selling to? How are they buying? Now, there's a lot that goes into this. I've done videos on road mapping. We go super in depth in GovClose, the certification program on this, because this is the way you're going to sell to the government. This is how you're going to understand what you need to focus on and what you don't need to focus on. But big picture, look at this. When I looked at program management services and I sorted this by small business and by sub-agency, big picture, I have a good idea of who I'm selling to. We got the VA at the top. We have the Department of Army here at number 2. We have Air Force after that. So, okay, it looks like the DoD sub-agencies and the VAs at the top. We can look at the exact contracts that are in here, and we can get a sense of how the government buys. We can look at them and see, all right, what are the exact offices in the VA? What are the exact offices in the Army that are actually making these purchases? Are they using contract vehicles that I need to apply for or write a proposal to be on in order to even sell to these agencies? Something else, if you do see this, and here's just a trick, we'll call this 13A. If I see the VA, I would bet if I clicked on service disabled veteran-owned small businesses, I bet most of the VA spending or a large percentage of it would be going to those type of companies. And understanding that little subtlety is going to be the difference on whether you try to sell to the VA or not. You know, if I click on that and I see that of that 300 million, 290 of it is going to companies that are service disabled veteran-owned small businesses, well, if you don't have a service disabled veteran-owned small business, then you're not selling to the VA. Or at the very least, you're partnering with an STVOSB, and they would do 51% or more of the work, and you would do the other. So understanding the federal buying process is very important. I gave you a little snippet there just to get you going. Watch our other videos if you want more information, or come to govclose.com. Talk to our advisory team, and they will let you know if our program, our one-year implementation program, is right for you. We walk you through the entire process. It's hard. We train you. There are deliverables. You are doing in-depth federal spending analytics. You're putting pipelines of leads together for specific companies. We verify everything. I personally onboard everybody and certify everybody. We have over 247 people in the program right now. They are killing it. So whether you're selling to the government with your business, if you want your training for your sales team, if you want a high-paying account executive job, right? And these jobs are going 120 grand a year, all the way up to 400 grand a year and higher. Just go check it out on LinkedIn.com or one of your other job boards. You'll see how much these jobs are going for. It's starting consulting companies. I mean, the sky is the limit. This is a great niche, a hard niche, but it is a well-paying niche for good reason. So check out GovClose.com if you're interested in that. Okay, now, rule number 14. If you understand this, this is going to set you aside from everybody else that tries to sell to the government and fails. And it is this: the market research phase. Rule number 14 is understanding, just knowing that there is something called the market research phase. What does that mean? Let me break it down to you like this. A solicitation comes out on SAM.gov. It's usually referred to as a RFP, which stands for request for proposal, or an RFQ, request for quote. Most people, when they first approach government contracting, think that this process starts with the RFP or the RFQ. But in fact, this is the end of the process. The process actually starts way before that. So before the solicitation comes out, there's an official phase of government contracting called the market research phase. And this is where the government is allowed to talk to companies. It's where you're allowed to talk to the government. The government has to figure out what they even need to put on contract. If I have a problem, whether it's cybersecurity, or if I have a problem with, maybe it's a problem with one of my aircraft, or it could be something simple like we're building a gymnasium on a military base. Well, we're not just going to throw a solicitation out there. We need to know the art of the possible. Hey, what are the new cybersecurity tools out there? What is in the realm of the possible? What's the leading technology that we could insert into this? What do we need to build that gymnasium? What are the latest construction codes? What type of businesses can build the type of gymnasium and have past performance that I need? Is the site that I want to build that gymnasium on, is it going to support the infrastructure or the building? There's 1,000 things that we need to know. By the way, as a program manager in the Air Force, my job was putting companies on contract, specifically managing those programs, early stage, find the money, get all of the requirements together, and figure out with the contracting officer best way to put the company on contract. But my expertise was not building gymnasiums or cybersecurity. Even though I was in charge of many cybersecurity efforts, I had to talk with engineers. I had to talk with companies that were doing it. This all happens during the market research phase. This is where we write the solicitation. So companies that understand that this is where the real work starts do much better in selling to the government. If you can meet with the government, we find leads early. We help the government write the solicitation. We can inform the government on the requirements that are going to be in there. And we can also inform the government on, hey, should this be set aside if you do have a small business? Should it be set aside for a woman-owned small business? You may have past performance. Your people may have certifications that you can recommend. And the more we are able to do this in the market research phase, the more the government knows us, trusts us, and puts these requirements in there, the better chances we are going to have of winning that contract in the end. Now, you've gone through all of this. You've won your contract. This takes us to law number 15, guys. The real work isn't winning the contract, and that takes a lot of work. The real work starts when you go on contract. That's law number 15. The hard work starts when you win that contract. We have got to perform. I could probably write another 15 laws of how to be a good government contractor once you are on contract, what you should be doing. Just know this, there are a lot of resources out there that can help you. And you also need to know that there's a lot of gray area in the acquisitions regulation. So some of the things that could happen to you when you are a government contractor, you could get a bad review. The government could terminate a contract for convenience. The government maybe is asking you to do more work and it starts eating into your profit margins. What do you do in those situations? Well, I can tell you there is something you can do in all three of them. I'll do some other videos on those, but making sure you have good resources, that you have good advisors. And, I would even say, if I was going to add a 16th rule to this, is you need to hire somebody that actually understands government contracting, that can not only win the contracts for you, but understand the federal acquisitions regulations and how to work with the government teams to ensure they are getting what they desire, that we're solving the problem, and your company is receiving the profit margins it's getting, that you're hitting your quotas and exceeding them each month. That's a full-time job, and you don't want to give it to someone that doesn't understand the process. So if you want to hire one of our advisors, you can certainly reach out to us and we could put you in touch with them. If you want to join GovClose, learn for yourself, love to have you in the program. But either way, those are 15 laws, 15 rules that are going to set you on the right path for winning government contracts and starting a profitable government contracting business. I almost forgot. Guys, I have tons of videos on this, right? So we have taken people, taught them government contracting. They started their own government contracting consulting businesses, and they're helping companies through some of the problems I just talked about, whether it's the market research phase, whether it's landing their contracts, or helping them, when the government does terminate a contract for convenience. Well, we have consultants that specialize in making sure that company still gets paid. If the government wants you or is going to start using a GSA schedule and you need to get a GSA schedule for your company, we have consultants that help companies get those GSA schedules. There's literally hundreds of niche areas that you can make your focus and build a great business, a great consulting business, or going out and getting one of those account executive jobs. These are great careers. I'm going to put videos in the notes for each of those options, so you can see people that have actually gone through the program, people that have started successful consulting businesses, and I want to say there's hundreds of them. It's probably just under that at this point, right? So there's probably just under 100 people that have started consulting businesses after going through our program. I'll put links to business owners that are successfully selling to the government, as well as people that have got those account executive jobs. Guys, thanks for watching. Check out those videos. We'll see you on the next one.